Her world crumbled the night her father signed away her life to settle a debt soaked in shame and desperation. Alina Vale had never thought she would be traded like a commodity, yet here she stood in the cold, smoky room of a high-stakes casino, watching her father's trembling hands commit her future to ink and paper. Her chest tightened with every stroke of the pen, but she said nothing. Words had become weapons she could not afford. Her father looked away, unable to meet her gaze, and that lack of remorse burned more fiercely than any anger. This is 15-minute binge watch. One story. One obsession. 15 minutes. Let's begin. Across the table sat a man who exuded power, control, and danger in equal measure. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and unnervingly calm, reading the contract as if he were savoring the moment of her life being handed over to him. When he finally signed, the pen clicked softly against the polished surface, echoing like a gavel sentencing her to a future she had no control over. "Debt settled," he said, his voice cold, measured. Her father exhaled, relief flooding his features. "Thank you. I swear I'll repay you." The man's lips curved slightly, almost cruelly. "No. You won't." Then, she looked up, and the world tilted violently. The man's eyes met hers, dark, intense, impossibly familiar. Recognition sparked between them, a jolt of memory and emotion she had thought buried forever. The man who now held power over her fate was the boy who had once loved her, the first and only man to ever make her heart feel safe. Gabriel Moretti. The boy who had vanished from her life without explanation years ago, leaving her broken and abandoned. He dismissed her father with a wave, his guards moving quickly to escort the men out. Her father cried, pleaded, begged, promising all sorts of impossible restitution. Alina did not watch him leave. Her gaze was fixed on Gabriel, searching for any trace of the boy she had loved, the boy she had mourned. She found only a man forged in fire, a man who had turned vengeance and power into weapons sharper than any blade. "You've grown," he said quietly, the words carrying more weight than she could bear. "So have you," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Gabriel stepped closer, the familiar scent of him, warm, intoxicating, and dangerous, wrapping around her. Memories collided with the present, laughter in abandoned streets, hands held under broken streetlights, whispered promises of forever that now seemed like lies. He gestured toward the exit. "Come. Your life belongs to me now." The mansion he took her to was more fortress than home, a glass and steel palace perched above the city like a king's throne. Each hallway, each room, screamed control, precision, and danger. The bedroom he assigned her was enormous, yet suffocating. She could see the skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows, yet the world outside might as well have been a universe away. Sleep would not come that night. Thoughts twisted violently, questions she dared not voice clawing through her mind. Why had he bought her? Why now? And why did he look at her with that dangerous intensity, like he wanted to punish her for something neither of them could change? Days passed under a suffocating routine. Gabriel communicated through orders and rules delivered with cold efficiency. She was to remain on the property, with no contact with anyone from her past. She was to obey. But he never hurt her physically. He never raised his voice. That restraint, more than anything else, unnerved her. It was clear he wanted something, though she did not yet know what. On the fourth night, he summoned her to his study. The room was bathed in shadow, only the city lights filtering through the glass walls. Gabriel stood with his back to her, hands clasped behind him. When he turned, the carefully constructed mask slipped for a moment, revealing a storm of emotion beneath. "Do you remember the night you disappeared?" he asked. Her breath caught in her throat. "I didn't disappear." "You did." His jaw tightened. "I left because your father destroyed everything I loved. Because my family was taken from me. And you were safe, while I burned." "That's a lie," she whispered. "I lost everything too. I waited for you." His laugh was harsh, hollow. "And yet, you never came." The truth spilled between them like shattered glass. Years of lies, manipulation, and betrayal surfaced. Gabriel revealed the depth of her father's gambling debts, how they had destroyed his family, and the reason he had been forced to leave the country in secret. Alina shared the letters she had written, the nights she had whispered his name into the darkness, the hope that he would return. Their reconciliation, if it could even be called that, was complicated by the past and shadowed by danger. Enemies emerged, men who wanted Gabriel dead and Alina silenced. Secrets unraveled, the contract was not what it seemed. Gabriel had never intended to keep her as a possession, he had bought her to protect her from people who would have destroyed them both if she remained under her father's roof. Yet their proximity rekindled dangerous desire. The first kiss, when it finally came, was nothing like the innocent one of youth. It was desperate, violent, and filled with the pain and longing that had festered for years. When they broke apart, Gabriel pressed his forehead against hers. "I bought you to hurt you," he admitted. "And yet every time I look at you, I remember the girl who saved me." "Then don't hurt me," she whispered. "Help me survive." Days became a battle of control, survival, and slow, simmering passion. They maneuvered through high-stakes business deals, assassinations disguised as accidents, and threats from unknown enemies who seemed to anticipate their every move. Trust was fragile, broken over and over, yet necessity kept them aligned. One night, during a particularly violent storm, Alina was kidnapped. Gabriel's world shattered at the moment he discovered it. He moved with brutal precision, leaving a trail of destruction and fear as he hunted the men who dared touch her. Alina, tied and bruised, remained defiant. She would not give them the satisfaction of fear. The climax came in a warehouse on the city outskirts. Flames licked the ceiling, the acrid smell of smoke and gunpowder filling the air. Gabriel burst through, tearing through the men who had dared take her. She threw herself into his arms, and for a moment, the world fell away. Blood, fire, and betrayal surrounded them, yet in that heartbeat, they were alive, together, and unbroken. Secrets of her father's crimes emerged in the aftermath. He had gambled not only money but their family's honor and safety. Confronted, he begged, promised, and cried, but no forgiveness came. His freedom was the only price for the years of manipulation and destruction he had caused, and Gabriel ensured it was paid. When the sun rose over the city, Gabriel found Alina on the balcony, wind catching her hair, her eyes reflecting strength and survival. "You're free," he said, voice low, heavy with emotion. "You always were." She turned to him, tears glistening. "Then choose me. Not because you own me, but because you love me." And he did. Yet life would not allow a simple happily ever after. Enemies had not vanished, some were watching, waiting. Shadows of the past lingered. But in that moment, they held each other, and nothing else existed except the quiet promise of a love forged in fire, betrayal, and survival. Theirs was a bond that could not be broken, one that thrived in the darkness, resilient against the world's cruelty. Gabriel had bought her body, yes, but he discovered that nothing he could own compared to the gift of trust and love she freely gave him. And Alina, for the first time in her life, understood that freedom and desire were not opposites, they were entwined, dangerous, and intoxicating. They fought battles together, against men who sought power over them, against lies that threatened to undo them, but every challenge drew them closer. Every revelation, no matter how dark, only strengthened the tether between their souls. Gabriel's vengeance became her shield, and her courage became his anchor. Their nights were no longer about silence. They whispered confessions, plotted revenge against the powerful men who had tormented them, and allowed themselves to remember the love that had begun long before wealth and power had corrupted their worlds. In a city where trust was currency and betrayal lurked behind every deal, Alina and Gabriel found a rare and terrifying equilibrium, love intertwined with danger, passion wrapped in obsession, desire mingling with retribution. They moved forward not as predator and prey, but as partners in survival, aware that the past could strike at any moment, but confident that together, they were unstoppable. As the weeks turned into months, their enemies fell one by one, leaving a trail of ruined men who underestimated a billionaire's obsession and a woman's resilience. Alina took control of her life, learning to wield influence, negotiate power, and navigate a world she had once only observed from the shadows. Gabriel remained ever watchful, a silent guardian and lover, constantly testing the line between trust and suspicion. Every touch, every glance carried a history of pain and longing. Every whispered word hinted at a future neither had dared imagine. The mansion, once a prison, became a home where two broken souls rebuilt themselves, stronger, sharper, and more united than ever. And when danger finally receded, at least temporarily, Gabriel and Alina discovered something neither expected: happiness, imperfect and fragile, but theirs. They knew the world could not be tamed entirely, nor could their pasts be erased. But they had each other. They had survived betrayal, violence, and manipulation. They had survived themselves. In the quiet aftermath, as city lights flickered below them, Gabriel held Alina close. "We are alive," he murmured. "And we belong to each other now, in ways no one can take." Alina rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the rhythm of protection and passion. "Then let's make it count," she whispered. "No regrets. No fear. Only us." And in that fragile, electrifying moment, the billionaire and the girl he once loved finally understood the truth: some bonds cannot be bought, stolen, or broken. They can only be lived, and survived, together. The weeks after Alina's rescue from the warehouse felt like walking through a storm that refused to end. The mansion, once intimidating, now felt like a fragile sanctuary, its walls sheltering two hearts hardened by betrayal yet softened by the fragile return of trust. But danger had not disappeared, it had merely gone underground, lurking in shadows, waiting for a misstep. Gabriel never left her side, though he did not smother her. His vigilance was a silent promise: harm would never touch her if he could prevent it. Alina, however, refused to remain a passive participant in her own story. She trained herself to move with grace and authority, learning quickly the art of negotiation, power play, and manipulation, the very tools that had once been used against her. Every day, she felt herself growing stronger, not just in body, but in spirit. Gabriel watched, a mixture of pride and fear flickering in his eyes, knowing that a woman who could survive the darkness surrounding them was also capable of commanding a dangerous power he could neither control nor predict. One night, a black envelope slid under the massive oak door of the study. Gabriel opened it with careful precision, reading the single sentence typed in bold letters: "The game is not over. We know where she is." The familiar rush of danger ignited his blood. Alina stepped beside him, calm yet fierce, her fingers brushing his as she said, "Then we finish it tonight." The plan was meticulous. Gabriel's enemies were no fools, they had survived this long because they were clever, brutal, and patient. But they had underestimated Alina. She had become more than a pawn in a billionaire's revenge, she was a strategist in her own right. Together, they orchestrated a trap, using their enemies' arrogance against them. It was a deadly chess match, and for once, the players were equal. The confrontation occurred at an abandoned yacht docked on the outskirts of the city, a place chosen by their enemies for secrecy. Gabriel and Alina arrived under the cover of darkness, stealth guiding every movement. Men with guns, knives, and venom in their eyes expected two vulnerable targets. They found a storm instead. Alina moved with deadly precision, disarming and subduing enemies with a combination of courage, cunning, and a calculated recklessness that surprised even Gabriel. He fought beside her, lethal, efficient, a man fueled by vengeance yet tempered by the protective fire for the woman he loved. It was in the chaos, as explosions and gunfire echoed across the water, that they realized just how intertwined their fates had become. Alina was not just surviving, she was commanding. Every glance, every whispered instruction to Gabriel, every decisive move she made forced him to see her not as the girl he had loved and lost, but as a partner, equal in skill, in mind, and in heart. And yet, even as adrenaline surged through their veins, the dangerous thrill between them remained, pulling them into moments of stolen intimacy, kisses in shadowed corners, whispered confessions over the roar of chaos, hands clasped like anchors in the storm. When the last of the attackers had fallen, either incapacitated or fleeing, Gabriel and Alina stood on the deck, drenched, bloodied, yet unbroken. The city skyline shimmered in the distance, lights like stars reflected in the dark water. Gabriel's hands cupped her face, his thumbs brushing over bruises he had never caused, his eyes holding hers with a desperation that cut deeper than any weapon. "You're unstoppable," he murmured. "And yet, I can't imagine facing this world without you." Alina's lips curved into a faint, exhausted smile. Then stop imagining it, and don't. We're unstoppable together. Her voice carried both triumph and the lingering ache of past betrayals. The days that followed were a mix of intense vigilance and rare moments of peace. Gabriel made sure that every last trace of her father's debts and manipulations were erased. Alina confronted him once, the anger that had simmered for years spilling over. He treated me like an object, Gabriel. I almost hated him for it, and I almost hated you too, for being the one who ended up controlling me. Gabriel held her, his grip firm but gentle, his forehead resting against hers. I didn't buy you to control you. I bought you to protect you. I was too late to protect you from him, but I will never be too late for you again. Her tears fell freely that night, a mixture of grief, relief, and the raw vulnerability that had been buried for so long. Gabriel whispered promises she had longed to hear, words of safety, desire, and love, binding them together with something stronger than the chains their enemies had tried to use against them. Yet peace remained a fragile illusion. A sudden message arrived, a chilling reminder that the world they had fought to survive still lurked in shadows. A photograph of a child, a girl with Alina's eyes, was accompanied by the words, "Your past is not done. Neither is your family's debt." Alina's heart froze. She had suspected, feared even, that her father's crimes extended beyond money, but seeing the evidence of it, innocent blood entwined with her past, drove her to the edge of despair. Gabriel never left her side. "We face it together," he said, his voice unwavering, a blade of certainty in a storm of doubt. And together, they delved into the depths of her father's secrets, unraveling a network of betrayal, trafficking, and deceit that reached farther than either could have imagined. Each revelation threatened to undo them, to shatter the fragile trust they had built. But each revelation also solidified their bond, forcing them to rely on each other in ways they had never considered possible. One night, as they uncovered the last of her father's hidden transactions, Alina finally confronted him. Her father, broken, desperate, and defiant, tried to justify his actions, claiming love as the excuse for his cruelty. Alina's rage was absolute. Love doesn't sell your child like property. Love doesn't put them in danger for your selfish games. Her voice echoed through the empty halls of the mansion, reverberating like the final verdict of a court. Gabriel remained beside her, silent but vigilant, ready to enforce justice if the men resisted. But Alina did not need him to do the talking. The confrontation alone, fueled by years of pain, fear, and betrayal, broke her father completely. When the authorities arrived, Gabriel made sure that Alina's father was held accountable, not just for debts, but for crimes that had scarred generations. Finally, with the chains of the past shattered, Alina allowed herself a rare moment of relief. She and Gabriel returned to the mansion, the city lights casting a warm glow across their sanctuary. They walked through the halls hand in hand, each room a testament to their survival, each shadow a reminder of the battles they had fought together. Gabriel pulled her into his study, the place where it had all begun. "We survived hell," he said softly, "and we did it together. But now, it's time to live." Alina smiled, the kind of smile that comes from deep within, from the core of a soul that has been battered, broken, and reborn. "Then let's live," she whispered. Their nights were no longer haunted by fear. They became moments of passion, intimacy, and unspoken understanding. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered word was an affirmation that they had survived everything and still chosen each other. Gabriel's arms became her sanctuary, and her presence became his solace. Together, they discovered that love, when forged in the crucible of betrayal and survival, could be stronger than any obstacle. Months passed. Enemies had been neutralized, her father's crimes exposed, and the shadows that once threatened their lives receded into memory. Gabriel and Alina began to explore the world beyond the mansion, traveling, experiencing life without the constant threat of danger, yet never letting their guard down completely. They had learned that the world was dangerous, yes, but they had also learned that together, they could face anything. One evening, as they stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean, the wind tugging at their clothes and hair, Gabriel turned to Alina, eyes blazing with intensity. "I bought you once," he said, voice low, filled with both humor and gravity. "But now, I choose you. Freely. always. Alina's heart swelled, tears of joy streaming down her face. And I choose you, she whispered. Freely. Always. The sun set behind them, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, mirroring the passion and intensity that had defined their journey. They embraced, holding each other close, knowing that the past would never be forgotten, but that it no longer held power over them. In the safety of their love, they found freedom, not just from the chains of money, betrayal, and crime, but freedom to be themselves, to be reckless, to be vulnerable, and to love without hesitation. Every scar, every wound, every moment of darkness had led them here, to each other, unbroken, unstoppable, and unafraid. And in that moment, the billionaire and the girl he had once loved, sold yet now free, realized the ultimate truth: love born from pain, survival, and vengeance was the most powerful force of all. No one could buy it, no one could steal it, and no one could destroy it. Together, they would face the world, and nothing would ever separate them again. Gabriel pressed his lips to hers, long, slow, and possessive, not as an act of ownership, but as a declaration of devotion, a promise that transcended wealth, power, and the sins of the past. Alina responded with the same intensity, the same certainty. And as the stars appeared above, indifferent witnesses to their trials and triumphs, they knew one thing for certain: the darkness had forged them, the danger had tested them, and the love that survived it all was theirs alone, eternal, and unbreakable. Together, they would rewrite their story, not as victims, not as pawns, but as kings and queens of their destiny, bound not by debt or vengeance, but by choice, trust, and an unshakable, all-consuming love. The mansion, once a cage, now echoed with laughter, whispered promises, and the kind of love that could survive anything. Alina and Gabriel had fought hell and returned, unbroken, and finally, entirely, unstoppable. Some loves save you. Others own you. If you crave dangerous billionaires and twisted romance, subscribe to 15-Minute Binge Watch. The next story starts soon. Don't miss it.